I'll tell Katie to look for you when she comes up there.
Anytime, Tricia, and tell her you interviewed her grandpa.
Yeah, Katie's a nice.
How old were you do you remember how old you were when the national park opened up?
The National Park was dedicated in 1935. President Franklin Roosevelt made a trip to Newfound Gap and actually did the dedication ceremonies up there in 1935. Now the National Park was Rockefeller donated money, and then the school children in the state of Tennessee, they collected monies, and so it was in the work for a long, long time. And of course the establishment of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is directly responsible for all of the economic development that we have in this county, and its which basis, of course, is tourism, and that was all because of the park. Prior to the establishment of the park, a lot of the large lumber companies operated here, cutting timber, and they bought up a lot of the land, and I'm sure they probably made some concessions on, maybe even donated some land to the national park. But the establishment of the national park was the best thing that happened to this section of the country.
There's a lot of dispute over that because many people lost where they lived, and then.
Well, yes, see, people back in those days, they lived all the way to the top of these mountains, and it's hard for people that live in a quote level country to realize, hey, you can farm in the mountains, you know. So a lot of people were in the mountains here, and then when the park came in, some of them voluntarily sold to the park, and then others had their land taken by the right at the eminent domain, which we still have in existence now. And if the city wants a piece of land, they can condemn the land and get it. And the National Park made an agreement with some of the families where they could live there for their lifetime. But many of them sold their property and then went in adjacent counties and bought farms, which were far better for farming than up here.
The national park brought a lot of tourism, you said?
Yes, the national parks that's the reason that basic reason why people started coming here was to come to visit the park. Then in recent years, there have been attractions like Dollywood and water parks and facilities like that. But basically, the tourist industry started here because people wanted to come to see the national park. And today, I'd say probably 50% of the people that come because of the national park.
Were there any other famous people besides the president and the Rockefellers that came to the park?
I don't recall any specifically. I'm sure a lot of famous people have visited the park, but in the establishment of the park, it was quite an honor at that time to have it dedicated by the President of the United States.
The Newfound Gap, is that, where exactly is it?
Newfound Gap, it's go to Gatlinburg and go toward Cherokee, North Carolina. It's at the top of the mountain where the Tennessee and North Carolina state line occurs. And there's plaques and evidence of the dedication ceremony at Newfound Gap.
Were there a lot of people at the dedication ceremony?
Yes, I've seen old pictures. There were quite a few people there.
Were you in this area when it was dedicated?
Yes, that was in 1935. I was 8 years old. I can remember, I remember that the occasion. I didn't go there, up there, but I remember the occasion when it was done.
How did the school children raise money for the
Oh,
national park?
they'd have little projects, and they'd put their pennies in, and it was quite a deal for the state of Tennessee. In fact, I think they raised quite a bit of money just through the solicitation of the school children, which was good. I mean, that's good to have.
How many schools were in this area at the time the national park opened up?
Well, there were you would say 3 high schools. Cosby, which is adjacent to the park, and Cosby, Gatlinburg, and Pittman Center were the high school. Then there were many small one-room schools scattered about. There was many of those.
Were there any in the park?
When the park took over and moved people out, while of course the schools moved out, well, yes, there were schools in the park. In fact, the first school that my father ever taught was in Greenbrier, which is, where Greenbrier up the river there. In Greenbrier, the first school he ever taught was in Greenbrier, but there were other small one-room schools around.
The schools moved when the park moved?
Yes, when the people moved out. When the people moved out, then the schools did not exist there anymore. They closed them.
Was the education level the same now, or is it set higher?
No, it's higher now. It's higher now. And early on, not many of the children went on to college, and they started going to college when they got to high school here at Pittman Center. And then a goodly number went on to higher education, a lot of them into professional schools and postgraduate degrees and so on. But prior to that time, no, people had a grade school education, and then they work on the farms, and usually a manual type labor.
Did any of your brothers and sisters go on to college?
Yes, I had 2 sisters that graduated from college. Both of them were teachers, and then one brother that made a career in the Navy and retired from the Navy, and he did not go to college. And then my older sister did not go to college. 3 of us did, and 3 of us didn't.
Well, I guess that's about it now.
Yeah. Okay.
So thanks again for coming.
You're welcome.
You guys did great.
Yes, yeah.
I'll give her a
I
hug.
wish I had a camera.
I know, but actually, we should have done that. I didn't think about that either.
Yeah, she's got it going.
For a mayor.
It is, it's nice. We went riding around after we set up, we drove all around it. It's really pretty. It's nice and quiet.
Well, the river,
And gee whiz, when I said a councilman.
Just look at the camera and when you introduce,
Okay.
just maybe look at her.
Okay. Hi, my name is Leah Arnsbach, and today is April 19th, 2002, and I'm interviewing Miss Margaret Ruth, and we're doing a project for Passing on the Pride about Pittman Center Heritage, and we're at Burnett Memorial Methodist Church today, and I'm going to ask her some questions.
Wanna do one more time?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can't laugh. Okay.
Yeah, there's,
Okay, one more time.
just whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, my name is Leah Arnsbach, and today is April 19th, 2002, and I'm here with Miss Margaret Ruth, and I'm doing a Pittman Center Heritage project for Passing on the Pride, and we're at Burnett Memorial Methodist Church, and I'm going to ask her some questions.
Time y'all are ready.
Okay. Miss Margaret, where were you born?
Knoxville.
Knoxville. And what was your childhood like? Were you in Knoxville?
Well, It was good. I went to, I lived in West Knoxville, and I went to private school. My father went to private school. We all went to private schools. You know, in Knoxville, you go to private school. So I went to St. Mary's and Catholic High.
And what kind of chores did you have when you were a child? What kind of chores did you have when you were a child?
Chores
Chores, yeah.
around the house. Well, Mama always got me. She did the cooking and I did the cleaning. Because she liked to cook and I didn't. So she did all the cooking. She make up recipes and all, and I did. But Daddy was the charter member of the Smoky Mountain Hiking Club, and he started hiking at 23. He and Carlos Kama and Jim Thompson and all of them. So I just we go, my brother and I, we go on camping trip every weekend. We go in the Smokies, you know, so, but in about 76, Jay Husky and several of us took 19 boys and girls from Pittman Center School up in Greenbrier for 3 days. We stayed at the hiking club cabin. And we had a big time. We walked way up the road, and I nearly stepped on a large rattlesnake. And that's when I told them we'd gone far enough. And Jerry and I got the children go back like little pigs. We pushed them back.
So what was your family like?
Family? Yeah, well, we all lived in about 2 blocks of my grandmother and grandfather lived 1 block, and we would go out and then up another block to our house. And then we had cousins living across the street from us, and aunt and uncle lived down in the next block. It's the Welch, the old Welch community, and everybody was Welch. And so we could go from, you know, back. And my grandmother, and back in those days, they loved to, one of them played the piano, and then they get around the piano and sing. You know what I mean? That's good entertainment.
Yeah.
You sing all the old songs and all. And one night they finished singing, and the neighbor next door said, "Go, come over and sing some more." We were sitting here on the porch enjoying it.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have a brother. My sister died when she was 8 months old. So I came along. And then my brother came along. He's a fireman. And I spoiled him rotten. But he's a fireman. He lives up at Talbot, right outside Morristown. He's a fireman with West Hamilton County Volunteer Fire Department.
What did you do for fun when... What did you do for fun?
Fun? Well, I was in young people's at the church, and we always having something. And then we'd go on camping trips and camp out 3 days. We went one time, my family went up, camped out 9 days up in Greenbrier. Was up there at that the hiking club's cabin. Daddy had built the hiking club's cabin up there in Greenbrier.
I know it said that you were a school worker. What exactly did a school worker do? What did you do?
School work?
Yes.
Well, I went to St. Mary's and graduated in Immaculate Conception Church, and then I went, at that time, the school was out on Magnolia. It was a 2-story house, an old ash home. So there was 126 in the whole place. I played basketball. I was on the basketball team, and they made me 77 because I was so short. But the girls' team, we got lost one night, you know, trying to find Powell Station. So we ended up almost to Clinton, and we knew we'd gone too far. So the boys had to play first. But the funniest thing, when I was on the basketball team at Catholic High, we played Pittman Center. Well, my coach came and said, we're going to play Pittman Center. Well, nobody knew where Pittman Center was. And it was funny. And everybody said, where's Pittman Center? I said, it's up in the Smokies. Well, we came up here one night, and we found it. And I played against Pittman because, of course, I was on Catholic team. And we played the 13th day of the month, 13th day of the year, and we beat Pittman by 13 points.
Wow.
I remember that, playing.
So how has the school system changed from then? And
School's changing now.
Mm-hmm.
You mean this one?
yes.
Well, it was real nice. When I came here, I told me the Lord got me this job at Pittman because I was hunting. I used to teach at Pi Phi. But then I was hunting, when I was hunting a job in the 80s, I couldn't find a job at all. So he sent me the employment thing, he sent me up on the mountain, Ski Mountain. I went up there and looked everywhere I couldn't. And so I looked, it was 5 minutes to 5, and I saw this employment place is closed. I probably have to come back tomorrow. And as I started down Ski Mountain toward Gatlinburg, I said, Lord, please help me get a job. And on the way down, a voice came to me just as plain as day in my ear, said, go to the employment bureau, go to the employment bureau, go down there at once. And I said, well, it'd be closed, but that voice was so real, and it said, go down there at once. So I went down there, got it about 5 o'clock. And when I walked in, the man said, oh, am I glad to see you? He said, I got a job for you. I said, you have? He said, yes, I got a job for you. He said, it's at Pittman Center. And said, the school needs somebody. And so you can go and call in Friday night, go call in and check in with them. And I did, and they said, come to work Monday morning. And I told them, I said, the Lord got me this job. Because just as soon as I got down there, soon as I asked, get me a job. Well, he did, because they said, come down here to Pittman. And said, we don't have a teaching job right now, but you can work in the lunchroom. Now, I did everything from painting the office to putting the baseboard back around after the big flood and cleaning up, and just a little of everything.
You said something about the flood. What was it like during the flood? What happened?
You mean the flood?
Yes, ma'am.
That was on Friday, 22nd of September. I believe it was 88, wasn't it 86? Along in the late 80s, 88. And I came to work. I said, I hope I can get back across the river. Where I came to work, and the river was up, but it wasn't over the roads. But when I came around by the city hall, I ran in over a foot of water. Well, wasn't anything I do but keep going. So I went up and parked in the back of the city hall, and I parked up there. And when I parked up there, behind, I'm glad I did, because the water was coming up fast. And I went on down to the school, and maybe it was beginning to be in the school then. And the phone rang, and I answered, and it was Jackie Parton. And he said, I want you all to evacuate at once. I said, okay, Jackie, we'll evacuate at once. But what are we going to do? He said, I'm sending a bus up there to pick you all up. You're going to spend the day at the community center. And said, the water is too deep. We had the little children, you know, the kindergarten. So we said, okay. And went out, and the bus just floated on by. Came up here and just floated on by the school. But he managed to stop it out here beside the church here. And the minister was here, and he came out. Some of the children begged him to go with us. Said, we'd be safe if you go with us. But we got 2 buses, and we load up muddy, because we wade in water up nearly to our hips. We carried the little ones, and then the rest of us held hands so we wouldn't float down the river. And we went down, mud and all, and spent the day at the community center over here. And then some of them had, most of them had way, but I didn't have a way to get home. So I told them, so good-looking Gatlinburg police officer came and brought me home. And brought me over to the, the city limits, and then Sam met me at the city limits to bring me on home. And I had to wait till the next day to come down and get my car till the water got down enough so I could get my car out. But I was up behind the city hall, which I was thankful.
So how long did it take before you got to come back to school? Like, how long did it take to clean
Well,
up?
that was on Friday. We came back Monday, but we couldn't have school. It was mud. See, it was about a foot deep, and it was mud. So we had to clean it up and get everything and go through everything, be sure everything in the lunchroom was clean and all, and because of the mud. But I just, I later talked to, ATE sent this, reporters up to report it. But I said, well, I won't notify my family in Knoxville and Jefferson City. I won't, no need to, because they won't know about it. But what this trouble is, it already been on the air. And when they reported it, then I got calls from Fort Bragg and everywhere, want to know if I was safe, But that was one of the biggest floods. But every time the creek goes up now, the fire department comes and gets somebody down here and watches it, because I have the scanner on. And he said that we're watching the school, and we got sandbags to use for the school and the city hall if the water gets up too bad. So they're right on the job checking on it.
What kind of public services did you have, like post office, things like that, stores?
I was a historian in my church for 30 years. And at one time, I was Presbyterian historian. And I had 53 churches, so I was traveling between here and Chattanooga and Athens, and a lot of our Presbyterian churches were all, one at Athens, Mars Hill, and the one at Cleveland got bullet holes, still got the bullet holes in the walls of the sanctuary. They put that in the Civil War, but I enjoyed that. And then, and my church sent me to King College to take a trading school and all. And then just a few years ago, I was asked by one of the professors if I would come up to a Tuscum College and take a special, he was teaching a special class in history. So he asked me if I would come up, so I could get on out here at 21, drive all the way to Greenville. And on 321, beautiful drive. I get up in the morning and drive to Greenville. And after class, I would come back and I would stop by and see Andrew Johnson's home and all along the way in the cemetery where he's buried and all. And took pictures of it, but I enjoyed it in American history.
So do you know of any famous people or events that happened that you will always remember?
Famous people?
Yeah, that happened in Pittman.
Well, we knew Dr. Thomas. I mean, we used to take Dr. Thomas on picnics. And he wrote out in longhand, in black ink, 3 pages of what Pittman Center was like when he first came in the 20s. I still have that. And, yeah, I've gotten thank you notes from President Eisenhower, and I got one thank you note, it was signed Mamie Doyle Eisenhower. So I got a thank you note from the White House twice.
Were there any inventions that made your lifestyle change? Any inventions that happened during your lifetime?
Well, it's all through the years, you know, more and more things, you know, like the World Fair. I got to go spend the day at the World Fair and got to see everything there. I still got my big scrapbook of everything that was, pictures of everything that was at the World Fair, and got a book on it.
Were you here when the park was dedicated?
In the what?
When the park was dedicated?
Yeah, the park, I wanted to go see President Roosevelt. I've just seen him once. But Mother don't like crowds. She didn't like to get in crowds. But Daddy and I like to go. But yeah. And I just got my new license plate, Friends of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And, but I have just about every book that's gotten out on the park. And I got a big plastic, one of those big, look like a trunk almost, plastic containers. And it's just full of books and history of the park. And when I was I was a historian of the Smoky Mountain Historical Society. And when I was secretary for a while, and when I was secretary, Wilma Dyckman, she's a state historian, asked me if we could write a book on Sevierville and Sevier County, what it was like before the park took over. Because they picked 11 counties, the government did, and Sevier County was one of them. The rest of them just wrote a little book on something, and that was it. But they turned us loose, and we got Dr. Bruce Wheeler, history professor at UT. Of course, he lives in Sevier County. And we met every Sunday at the library. And he gave us all assignment. And have you seen one of the books, Gentle Winds of Change? It's out. I wrote chapter 3 in that book. It's a bestseller. I wrote the whole chapter 3. And what it was like living in Sevier County before the park came in. And it was real nice, but we got a lot of improvements since then. But, of course, in Greenbrier, even when we were a child, we'd go up to Hiking Club cabin. So Daddy helped build the cabin, the Smoky Mountain Hiking Club's cabin. And it's still there. And we'd go up there. We used to sleep in the top of the barn some, and when a big crowd, and then the loft, and we spent 9 days up there one time in Greenbrier. And we started to go to bed and had to get a black snake out of the sleeping bag, so we'd go to bed. And then I stepped over a big rattlesnake, and then almost stepped on a copperhead around the cabin there. Because there are a lot of snakes in Greenbrier. They like it too.
So how has Pittman changed throughout the years?
Well, I got pictures of Pittman Center. They were looking down on it, and it was taken in the 20s. And there used to be the general store and post office down here at the corner as you start up this way from the highway. And it was a big wooden building, and on one side it was the post office, and on one side it was a general store. You buy all your material and your sewing things and postcards. I still got some of the postcards I got at the old general store. And it was nice, but the store would go in now fine, but they got bars over the windows because of the post office, you know. But you could go right from the store into the post office, so that didn't help any. But you could go in there and buy material, thread, anything you needed, the old general store. And there was a big house and a little store across the river down here. I mean, across the creek, across Webb Creek. But I got pictures of taken from the air, looked down, showing the old general store. And the high school was where the city hall now, between that and the road that goes up to the center was the high school, two or 3 story wooden building. A lot of steps go up and down. That was Pittman Center High School. And then we had an infirmary, and then we had this church. And Mr. Burnett, one of the early officers. And we wished sometime we had the post office back, so we wouldn't have to go to Sevierville all the time, because that's where we get our mail. We live in Pittman Center. Our mail comes from Sevierville, and our address is Sevierville, but our telephone goes through Gatlinburg. But we live in the city of Pittman Center. It's kind of confusing, but anyway, it's grown because Dr. Thomas said that back in those days, see, the early days of Pittman, they didn't have school buses. They picked up the children with a wagon, 2 horses in a wagon. And they go along, you have to live a certain distance, and they go along, pick the children up, and get pictures, the children sitting in the back of the wagon, come to school. And Cora and them she was the home ec teacher, and the city hall that she and some of the teachers lived upstairs at what is now the city hall, and then they have the girls. Some of them, if they lived too far, they stayed here at the school, and they had a garden. The boys worked the garden, and so they grow the vegetables, and then the girls learn in home ec how to fix it, and that's what they had for lunch. And the building was all wood. They tore the old school down and when they built this one. But I got a picture when it wasn't anything, just a field.
We're gonna look at your books now. Can we look at your books now? Sorry.
She's gonna make a still shot of them.
Yeah, I am up at Sunshine when I was about 3 weeks old. Mother took me up at Kensal Spring. They used to call it Sunshine. We stayed at the hotel, the Smoky Mountain Hotel, which was across the river. And she left me, that picture of it, she left me out under a tree one day, and she said, I'm going to get something out of the room. I'll be right back. Don't move. Well, that wasn't the thing to say, don't move, because when she came back, I was gone. Just 3 years old, you see. And I had gone down by myself and crossed the road, crossed the swinging bridge, and gone up the other road and was sitting in the depot watching the train. She finally found me. Everybody she asked, they said, have you seen a little child? And they said, well, down by the river, she knew I was in the river. And then, up by the train, she knew I was in the train. But they had a little depot there. And on Sunday morning, all the people that are there, the children could all go to Sunday school in the little depot. And so you ride the train up from Knoxville. And one time we hit a cow. And you ride the train up, and you, on Sunday morning, they had and that tickled me, having a Sunday school in a depot. But they had it. But that was the same season. We had Kensal Springs and Townsend and Gatlinburg and Altamont and all these and all the different springs around here, Montvale and see, that was if you lived in Knoxville, that was a treat to come up and spend the weekend. And so that was fun, but I didn't think about someday I'd be living up here.
Have they been somewhere? Have they been on a trip?
Mm-hmm. They take all kinds of pictures. I know Daddy cut one picture of one of the heads and put it up in the tree, and he put one in a basket. You know, make all kinds of crazy pictures. And I took all those early pictures and put them in albums. But
What'd you call that?
Kodaking. That in Knoxville, see, they would go out to different places and take their lunch. It might be a cemetery anywhere. And at that time, Inskip or Cherry Park, and that was out. And there's the baby suits they wore. That my granddaddy and mama and grandmother and my two aunts in Atlantic City. And that's a baby suit. But there I am with a billy goat. One day there in town, the man with a goat pulling a little wagon came around, and when he came around like that, and for like $1 or $2, you could put your child up on the wagon and pose, and then he would take a picture. And that's what I got. That's some more. That's all, one of my grandmother's grandchildren.
Just, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm teaching children at Pittman. Spoil them right.
Are you gonna put those in a library somewhere or give them to a family member? I
I
know
don't
some people
know.
that would love to have that.
Mm-hmm. That's my brother. He's a fireman. But we was raised about a block from the fire hall. So,
Where's that one of you on the goat?
oh,
I think it's back here.
that's Mom and Daddy. That's the bathing suits. Atlantic City. Oh, that's me the goat. That's me. That's the sunshine. That's the grandma. That's me the goat.
Okay.
I nursed at St. Mary's for 4 years. Worked in emergency. Here we are, my cousins. We used to have a cabin up on Grassy. That's my two grandmothers, Grandmother Ruth, Grandmother Watrous. There we are. My brother chewed the legs off of his bunny. I still got mine. I mean, I did have it. That's camping. I still got my tents and my tarpaulin and everything for camping. Yes, in the river is sunshine. My uncle used to have a boat out on Norris Lake. We spend weekends out there. This is a junior miss program. I still got my programs that I got for Jeanette McDonald when she was in Knoxville. And Daddy and I, every year, we went to over UT and saw Fred Wayne and his Pennsylvanians. Anyway. And this is Miss Alfan, that's my music teacher. She lived where Hope Cody is now at UT, and she was just a relative. And it said Frank Nelson. and she's the one that taught me. She only taught opera, so. And this is my art teacher, and Miss Mary Granger. She taught art up there beside the old city hall, up there at in Knoxville, by the old city hall. She had classes up there. And she was a good artist. She lived to be in the 90s. That's Miss Annie McGee. Her studio was where the library is now, Temple Avenue. And we would go over there. And Miss Annie, of course, she loved the ballet and all. So we would practice and get along fine. But just let her go to the telephone or something where we switch the music, put boogie woogie on, and then we do the boogie woogie. But she's my dancing teacher.
Can we look at some of the Pittman Center